Have you ever been talking to a woman and felt like everything was going really well at first? She replied quickly. She started conversations. She seemed genuinely interested. But then, after a few days, something changed. You notice that she takes longer to reply. Her messages become shorter. She doesn't seem as excited to talk anymore. And that's when you make a mistake. You try to compensate for her lack of interest by putting in even more effort. You send another message. You start another conversation. You ask if everything is okay. You try to make her laugh. And when she doesn't respond, you think, maybe I need to show her that I'm even more interested. But that's exactly when you can start looking desperate. The mistake isn't showing interest. Let's make one thing clear. Showing interest doesn't make you desperate. You can like a woman, compliment her, ask her out, and make it clear that you want to get to know her. The problem starts when you feel like you need to convince someone to like you, when the conversation stops being a mutual exchange and becomes a constant attempt to get her attention. You send a message, she replies hours later, you respond immediately, she gives you a short answer, you send another question just to keep the conversation alive. She doesn't take any initiative, so you increase your effort even more. See the pattern? You're trying to create a connection by yourself that should be built by both people. Desperation often comes from needing a response. A lot of men think looking desperate means sending dozens of messages. Not always. Sometimes desperation appears in a much more subtle way. It's when your mood starts depending on her response. She replies quickly, you feel great. She takes hours, you become anxious. She sees your message, you start wondering what you did wrong. She gives you a short response, you try to compensate by sending an even longer message. And without realizing it, that woman starts taking up too much space in your mind. You're no longer simply getting to know someone, you're looking for validation. The second mistake, trying to get her interest back. When a man notices that a woman is becoming more distant, it's common to think, I need to do something to make her like me again. So he starts sending more messages, more compliments, more attention, more invitations, more explanations. But there's a question you should ask yourself first. Is she actually interested, or am I trying to recover something that has already changed? That question changes everything, because when there is genuine interest on both sides, you don't have to carry the entire interaction by yourself. She reaches out too. She asks questions too. She suggests meeting up too. She shows curiosity about you too. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced all the time, but there needs to be reciprocity. Interest doesn't need to be chased. Imagine you ask a woman out. She says she can't. That's okay. You can ask another time. But if she turns you down again and never suggests an alternative, that is also an answer. You don't need to ask 5 different times to prove that you're interested. You show interest once. Then you watch what she does with that interest. That's one of the biggest signs of emotional maturity. You don't try to convince someone to choose you. You give them the space to choose. What should you do when you realize you're chasing too much? First, stop trying to fix the situation immediately. Don't send a message just because you're anxious. Don't ask, are you being different with me? Don't invent random topics just to get a response. And most importantly, don't turn every silence into a problem you need to solve. Keep living your life. Work, train, spend time with your friends. Have your own plans. Do things that don't depend on her attention. Meet other people. Because when your life continues to be interesting even when that woman isn't available, you stop acting from anxiety and you start acting from choice. And here's the difference. A desperate man thinks, how can I make her like me? A confident man thinks, are we actually a good match? See the difference? In the first situation, you put the woman on a pedestal and yourself in the position of someone trying to get approved. In the second, you're simply discovering whether there is compatibility. You're evaluating her too. You have standards too. And you can say, I like her, but I'm not getting the same level of interest, so I'm going to move on. That's not pride, that's reciprocity. Don't confuse persistence with insistence. Persistence means showing genuine interest while giving the other person space to respond. Insistence means continuing to push after the lack of reciprocity has already become obvious. And there is a huge difference between the two. You don't need to disappear to seem interesting. You don't need to play games. You don't need to pretend you don't care. You simply need to stop doing the emotional work for two people. If she shows interest, reciprocate. If she moves closer, move closer too. If she creates space for you, step into it. But if you realize you're constantly trying to enter a door that the other person isn't opening, stop pushing. Conclusion. At the end of the day, the biggest mistake that makes a man look desperate isn't sending one extra message. It's believing that if he tries hard enough, he can make someone feel something they simply don't feel. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need the perfect line. You don't need to respond perfectly every time. You need to learn how to recognize reciprocity, because the right woman for you won't require you to constantly prove your value. And when genuine interest exists on both sides, the conversation doesn't feel like a chase. It feels like an exchange. And remember, you don't need to chase someone to prove that you're worthy of being chosen. You need to recognize the person who is choosing you too.